Welcome to Books and Storytime by mybooksummary.com. Get ready. Navigate for quick wisdom of countless stories. Let's dive into the world of knowledge together and explore. Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Once upon a time, in a little house deep in the heart of the forest, lived three bears. But these weren't just any bears. No, these were a family of bears who had figured out how to live like people. They had a cozy little home with furniture, a kitchen, and most importantly, a love for porridge that was unmatched by anyone in the entire forest. The family consisted of Papa Bear, who was as big as a tree trunk and had a voice like thunder. Then there was Mama Bear, who was a bit smaller but just as strong, and she had a heart as warm as her homemade porridge. And finally, there was Baby Bear, the smallest and most curious of the bunch. He was always asking questions, poking his nose into everything, and dreaming up new adventures. One bright and cheerful morning, Mama Bear woke up early, as usual, to make breakfast. She cooked up a big pot of porridge, enough to fill even Papa Bear's enormous appetite. But when she tasted it, she realized it was much too hot. "This porridge is hotter than a summer's day," Mama Bear said, fanning her tongue. "Why don't we go for a walk while it cools down?" Papa Bear suggested, because a walk in the woods was his favorite way to start the day. "Yeah, let's go," Baby Bear shouted, already bouncing toward the door. He loved exploring the forest, imagining it was full of hidden treasures and secret paths. So off they went, leaving their steaming bowls of porridge on the table. The forest was their playground, filled with tall trees that whispered secrets and bushes that rustled with tiny creatures. They strolled along, Papa Bear pointing out all the best berry-picking spots, Mama Bear admiring the flowers, and Baby Bear trying to catch butterflies. Now, not too far away, in a small village at the edge of the forest, lived a little girl named Goldilocks. Goldilocks was a sweet girl with the culliest, shiniest golden hair you ever did see. But she had one tiny little problem. She was curious. So curious, in fact, that she often found herself in the most peculiar situations. You see, Goldilocks just couldn't resist exploring, even when her mother told her to stay close to home. On this particular morning, Goldilocks had wandered off into the forest. She skipped along, picking flowers, chasing after squirrels, and humming a little tune to herself. Before long, she found herself in a part of the forest she didn't recognize. "Well, this is interesting," Goldilocks said to herself, looking around. She wasn't scared. After all, curiosity had led her to discover all sorts of wonderful things before. And just as she was thinking this, she spotted something that made her eyes go wide with excitement. Right there, in the middle of the forest, was a little house. It was the cutest, coziest house she'd ever seen, with a red roof, a chimney puffing out smoke, and a garden full of flowers. Goldilocks felt a flutter of curiosity. Who could live in such a darling little house? Now, you might think Goldilocks would knock on the door and politely ask if anyone was home. But remember, Goldilocks was curious, and she didn't always think things through. So, without a second thought, she walked right up to the door, turned the handle, and stepped inside. The first thing Goldilocks noticed was the wonderful smell of something warm and sweet. Her tummy rumbled. She hadn't had breakfast yet. Following her nose, she found herself in the kitchen, where three bowls of porridge sat on the table, just waiting to be eaten. "How lucky am I?" Goldilocks exclaimed. "This must be a gift from the forest." She looked at the three bowls, one big, one medium, and one small, and decided to try the biggest bowl first. After all, it seemed like the most generous serving, and she was feeling quite hungry. But when she took a spoonful from Papa Bear's big bowl, she yelped in surprise. "Ouch! This porridge is as hot as a dragon's breath," she said, fanning her mouth. Clearly, the biggest bowl was not the best choice. Next, she tried the medium-sized bowl. "This one looks just right," she thought. But when she took a bite, her face scrunched up in disappointment. "Brr, this porridge is as cold as the North Pole." It wasn't at all what she was hoping for. Finally, Goldilocks tried the smallest bowl. She took a careful spoonful, and her eyes lit up. This porridge is perfect," she said with a smile. It was just the right temperature, not too hot, not too cold, but just right. Before she knew it, she had eaten every last bit. Feeling quite satisfied, Goldilocks looked around the cozy little room. She noticed 3 chairs by the fireplace, each one a different size. There was a big chair, a medium-sized chair, and a small chair. "Well, I could use a little rest after that delicious porridge," Goldilocks said to herself. She decided to try out the big chair first, thinking it would be the most comfortable. But as soon as she sat down, she realized it was much too hard. "It's like sitting on a pile of rocks," she exclaimed, jumping up quickly. Next, she tried the medium-sized chair. It looked much softer, and she thought it would be just the thing. But when she sat down, she sank so deep into the cushions that she felt like she was being swallowed up. "This chair is too soft," she said, struggling to get out. Finally, she tried the smallest chair, Baby Bear's chair. It looked just right for her size. And when she sat down, it was neither too hard nor too soft. It was just right. Goldilocks sighed in contentment. But as she leaned back to relax, there was a loud crack. The chair broke into pieces, and Goldilocks tumbled to the floor with a thud. "Oh dear," she said, rubbing her head. "Maybe that chair wasn't as perfect as I thought." Feeling a bit embarrassed and a little tired, Goldilocks decided she needed to lie down for a while. She wandered into the next room, where she found 3 beds lined up neatly in a row. There was a big bed, a medium-sized bed, and a small bed. "These beds look so cozy," Goldilocks thought. "I'll just take a little nap before heading back home." She climbed into the big bed first, Papa Bear's bed. But as soon as she lay down, she realized it was much too hard. "This bed feels like sleeping on a wooden board," she grumbled. So she moved to the medium-sized bed, Mama Bear's bed. It looked softer, but when she lay down, she sank right into it. "This bed is too soft," she complained. "It's like lying in a pile of feathers." Finally, she tried the smallest bed, Baby Bear's bed. It was just her size, and when she lay down, it was neither too hard nor too soft. It was just right. Goldilocks pulled the blanket up to her chin, closed her eyes, and within moments, she was fast asleep. Meanwhile, the 3 bears had finished their walk and were making their way back home. They had picked some berries, admired the flowers, and now they were looking forward to their breakfast. But when they walked through the door, they knew something wasn't right. "Someone's been eating my porridge," growled Papa Bear, staring at his half-empty bowl. "And someone's been eating my porridge too," said Mama Bear, noticing her spoon was out of place. Baby Bear looked at his empty bowl and squeaked. "Someone's been eating my porridge, and they ate it all up." The 3 bears looked at each other in surprise. Who could have come into their home and eaten their breakfast? They decided to investigate further. Papa Bear walked over to his big chair and noticed it wasn't quite right. "Someone's been sitting in my chair," he growled, seeing that the cushion was all messed up. "And someone's been sitting in my chair too," said Mama Bear, noticing that her chair wasn't as it should be. Baby Bear ran to his small chair and gasped, "Someone's been sitting in my chair, and they've broken it all to pieces." The 3 bears were getting more and more worried. Who could have done this? They followed the trail of clues to the bedroom, where they found even more surprises. "Someone's been sleeping in my bed," rumbled Papa Bear, noticing the rumpled sheets. "And someone's been sleeping in my bed too," said Mama Bear, pointing at the pillows that were out of place. Baby Bear peeked into his small bed and gasped, "Someone's been sleeping in my bed, and she's still here." Sure enough, there was Goldilocks, fast asleep in Baby Bear's bed, with her golden curls spread out on the pillow. She looked so peaceful, completely unaware of the 3 bears standing over her. Papa Bear cleared his throat, and Mama Bear folded her arms, waiting for the girl to wake up. But Baby Bear, who was still upset about his broken chair and empty porridge bowl, couldn't hold back any longer. "Hey, wake up," Baby Bear squeaked, his little voice louder than you'd expect from such a small bear. Goldilocks' eyes fluttered open, and she saw 3 pairs of eyes staring down at her. One big, one medium, and one small. Her heart skipped a beat, and she sat up in a panic. "Oh no!" she cried, realizing she'd been caught. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I didn't know, well, you see, But Before she could finish her sentence, she jumped out of bed, dashed out of the room, and ran as fast as her legs could carry her. The three bears watched as Goldilocks bolted from the house and disappeared into the forest. They stood there for a moment, each one a little stunned by what had just happened. "Well," said Papa Bear, finally breaking the silence. "That was unexpected." Mama Bear nodded in agreement. "I suppose we'll need to make some more porridge. And maybe fix my chair," sighed Baby Bear, looking at the broken pieces on the floor. The three bears tidied up their home, and as they did, they couldn't help but chuckle at the morning's strange events. They knew they'd have quite the story to tell the next time they saw their friends in the forest. As for Goldilocks, she ran all the way home, her heart pounding in her chest. She vowed to herself that she'd never again wander into someone else's house uninvited. And from that day on, she made sure to stick close to home, where she could explore safely without any more bear-sized surprises. And the three bears? Well, they lived happily ever after, always keeping an eye out for any curious little girls who might wander into their home again. But as far as they knew, Goldilocks had learned her lesson, and they never had another unexpected visitor. And so, they all lived happily ever after, each in their own cozy corner of the forest, with the memory of that one wild morning to keep them smiling for years to come. Thanks for tuning in. For more enlightening content and a detailed summary, visit www.mybooksummary.com. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends. Let's inspire and empower each other. Subscribe to our channel and share our videos with your friends and family.